Miss Danreael here, and I have a word for you. Adjust. Don't give up. The verse for this video is Judges 20:26 through 28, and it reads, Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening, and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days the ark of the covenant of God was there, with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, and son of Aaron, ministering before it. They asked, Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites, or not? The Lord responded, Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. In this book of Judges, chapter 20, the children of Israel, they were up against their enemies, and they was being defeated, and they didn't know, like, should they keep going? And they asked God before this even happened, should they go again? But they got defeated once before this. And then they kept going. They kept, getting defeated. And they finally asked God, like, should we keep going? He was like, yes. And then he gave them the victory. He said he was going to bring the enemies into their hands. So look, I really want to read the whole chapter of Judges 20 to you really fast. I'm going to go really fast, so just stick with me. But the point of this is that sometimes you have to adjust. You can't just give up because you got defeated one time. So the book of Judges chapter 20, I'm going to read really fast. The Israelites punished the Benjaminites. Then all Israel from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came together as one and assembled before the Lord in Mizpah. The leaders of all the people of the tribes of Israel took their places in the assembly of God's people, 400,000 men armed with swords. The Benjaminites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. Then the Israelites said, Tell us how this awful thing happened. So the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, said, I and my concubine came to Gibeah in Benjamin to spend the night. During the night, the men of Gibeah came after me and surrounded the house, intending to kill me. They raped my concubine, and she died. I took my concubine, cut her into pieces, and sent one piece to each of the region of Israel's inheritance, because they committed this lewd and outrageous act in Israel. Now all because they committed this lewd and outrageous act in Israel. Now all you Israelites, speak up and tell me that you have decided to do. All the men rose up together as one, saying, None of us will go home. No, not one of us will return to his house. This is what we'll do to Gibeah. We'll go up against it in the order decided by casting lots. We'll take 10 men out of every 100 from all the tribes of Israel, and 100 from 1,000, and 1,000 from 10,000 to get provisions for the army. Then the army arrives at Gibeah in Benjamin. It can give them what they deserve for this outrageous act done in Israel. So all the Israelites got together and united as one against the city. The tribes of Israel sent messengers throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now turn those wicked men of Gibeah over to us, that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel. But the Benjaminites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. From their towns they came together at Gibeah to fight against the Israelites. At once the Benjaminites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to the 700 able young men from those living in Gibeah. Among all the soldiers, there were 700 selected troops who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at the hare and not miss. Israel, apart from the Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. The Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Benjaminites? The Lord said, Judah shall go first. The next morning, the Israelites got up and pitched camp near Gibeah. The Israelites went out to fight the Benjaminites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjaminites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the Israelites encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and went before the Lord until evening and inquired of the Lord. They said, Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites? The Lord answered, Go up against them. Then the Israelites drew near to Benjamin the second day. This time, when the Benjaminites came out of Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords. Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired the Lord. In those days, the ark of the covenant of God was there, and with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. They asked, Shall we go up again to fight the Benjaminites for our fellow Israelites or not? The Lord responded, Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. Then Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjaminites on the third day and took up the positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjaminites came out to meet them and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before, so that 30 men fell in the open field on the roads. The one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. While the Benjaminites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." All the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar, and the Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's able young men made a frontal attack to Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjaminites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and all that day the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjaminites, all armed with swords. Then the Benjaminites saw that they were beaten. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin because they relied on the ambush they had set near Gibeah. Those who had been in the ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. The Israelites had arranged with the ambush they should send a great cloud of smoke from the city. Then the Israelites would counterattack. The Benjaminites began to inflict casualties on the Israelites, about 30, and he said, "We are defeating them in the first battle." But when the column of smoke began to rise in the city, the Benjaminites turned and saw the whole city going up in smoke. Then the Israelites counterattacked, and the Benjaminites were terrified because they realized that disaster had come on them. So they fled, the Israelites, in the direction of the wilderness, but they could not escape the battle. And the Israelites who came out of the towns cut them down there. They surrounded the Benjaminites, chased them, and easily overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjaminites fell, all of them valiant fighters, as they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Ramah. The Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjaminites as far as Gidam and struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjaminite swordmen fell, and all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness in the rock of Ramah, where they stayed 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin to put all the towns to sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they ran across, they set on fire. So look, sometimes we have to adjust. We can't just give up. Like this chapter said, they kept going up to battle. They were losing men. They was being defeated. You feel me? But like they kept inquiring of God. That word inquiring of God is very important. That means they kept going to God and asking him, what should I do? What should we do? That is so important because that's where your answer is. Your answer is with God. Your answer is not in the world. It's not in, what you're doing or the situation. You have to inquire God. Also, if you ever read about King David, he always inquired God a lot. Like he was really, really close with God. There's so many times when you read about David, it says that he inquired the Lord. He inquired the Lord. He inquired the Lord. So that is so important that we go to God when we're having an issue or when we're not succeeding or when we keep getting defeated. We have to ask him, what do we do? And also we have to adjust. They adjusted. In the verse 26 to 28, it says, then all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. So they were sad. They were defeated. They were crying before God. They didn't know what to do because, like I said, they kept losing men. And then it says they fasted that day until evening. So they fasted. They knew that it's important to fast. It's important to honor God with your body. It's important to humble yourself. And it says they fasted that day until the evening. So they didn't even fast the whole day. They didn't fast 3 days. They didn't fast 24 hours. Some of us, we don't fast at all. We have to fast sometime. We have to do something. Fasting is something that they did regularly in the Bible. A lot of different people. Today, we fast to lose weight or to do it for a trend. But they was doing this in a spiritual sense so that they can win, so that they can overcome, so that they can defeat and have the victory. This is important for us as well. We need to be fasting. And it says they fasted until the evening. So you don't have to fast the whole day. You can fast for 8 hours. You can fast for 6 hours, 10 hours, 18 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. You have to do something. You have to fast. Okay? So that was important. And then it says, and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. So again, they offered something to the God. They gave him some time. You know what I'm saying? They sacrificed for God because they wanted an answer on what they should do. And then in verse 27, it says, and the Israelites inquired of the Lord. Like I was just saying, you have to come to God and ask him what needs to be done. What do I need to do? And you have to give him that space and opportunity to show you, to speak to you, and to, send you that confirmation of that sign. And the way you do that, you have to have a open ear. You need some type of quiet time. You need to really be in a place where he can speak to you. You can't have so much distraction and disruption going on in your life that you can't hear from the Most High God. That is so important. Rest of verse 27. In those days, the ark of the covenant of God was there, and with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it, they asked, shall we go up again to fight against the Benjaminites, our fellow Israelites, or not? The Lord responded, go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. So look, this part is important. because they asked, which means they inquired, and this was after they had fasted. And then God answered them. And he said, go tomorrow, for I will deliver them into your hands. So that right there in itself is deep, because it was after that they fasted, the Lord answered them and he gave them the victory. He gave them the say so. They already knew they was going to win because he told them. He answered them. He told them, like, I'm going to deliver you. I'm going to put them into your hands. You're going to win. This was after they fasted. So fasting, like I said, some things only come by prayer and fasting. Because I guarantee you, if they didn't fast and if they didn't ask God what to do, they weren't going to get no answer. They was just going to be continuing to weep and be sad and be defeated. So we have to fast and we have to adjust. We have to ask God, what do we do next? And he's going to give you an answer. So look, remember to adjust and don't give up. I pray that this video blessed you. I love you. God bless you. And I'll see you next time.